Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. We are here talking all things inner work. And if you aren't into inner work, maybe listening to our podcast will help you get into it and find out why it's so important to do. What do you think, Laurel?
Oh, yes. It's a great way
Yeah. Yeah.
to get
I
into it. Yes.
yeah. And I feel like inner work, right, for a long time, I think with some of the stigma around mental health and some of the stigma around counseling. Some of it's gone away because of the coaching field coming in and people partaking in mental health activities a little more aggressively and readily. So there's not quite as much, stigma around it. But I don't know. Some people are just anxious about the thought of like looking inward and dealing with, I don't know, uncomfortable feelings, maybe thoughts that are hard to think about, whatever. And yet it's such a pathway to freedom that, this is why we're doing the podcast, because we want to invite people to think about this as beautiful work, because you
It really,
free
yeah.
yourself to a beautiful life by doing this work.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thinking about mental health is just part of it, right? Mental
Mm-hmm.
health, physical health, spiritual health, right?
Yeah.
All of that. When I think about our wellness,
Mm-hmm.
inner work is really a wellness tool that really can change our life. And
Absolutely.
it can be uncomfortable if you're just beginning, or if you
Mhm.
haven't started, or if you come from a family where you don't really reflect and look inwardly.
Yeah.
Then it's new, it's strange, it's different, it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're here hopefully to help you make it less uncomfortable and maybe really comfortable as you explore with us.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I think what makes it comfortable is knowing that you have people to support you when
Mm.
you discover something that is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
And we are here to do just that.
Yeah. So this month of January of 2024, as we release the show this week, we are in a month of exploring the topic of confidence. And we haven't really hit this one in a kind of a direct big way on the podcast yet, the topic of confidence. So we're excited to share it this week. And this whole month, actually, the whole month. And this week, we have an interesting question for you and topic to explore together. And we will circle around about how this relates to your self confidence and your confidence throughout the show. But here's your question. Drumroll. Are you self aware or self absorbed? Now, the reason this topic came forth as one of our topics for this month was because for anybody who's interested, you can go back and you can run through and, put in this topic and you'll find a very brief video that I made way back years ago when I was making videos regularly for my website and on YouTube. And it was called Self Aware versus Self Absorbed. And it's been very popular on YouTube. So we know this topic is of interest to people and we want to really explore it in an open ended, non judgmental way, don't we, Laura? That's our goal today.
We do. We do, because I know, when we talked about this topic, some judgment came up for me.
Mhm.
I never want anyone to accuse me of being self-absorbed.
I know.
That would just be I would not accept that well.
Yeah.
But I know, after doing the work, that I have still a piece of ego within my being, right?
Yes.
Ego is something that maybe, if I dare to say, we all have
Mhm.
ego. And, ego can lead to being self-absorbed
Right,
if
because it's
we don't.
survival. It's part of our
Yes,
survival,
it is
right?
part of our
Yeah.
survival. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And
if we're
so let's
not
talk.
yeah,
uh,
yeah, right? So if we're not self-absorbed enough, it's really hard to survive.
That's right. I mean, that's a really good reminder that
Right?
we do have to be self-absorbed to an extent, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
I mean,
and even
yeah. Go ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I coach an awful lot of clients about self-care.
Mm.
Self-care in a way of putting yourself equal, or sometimes before other people,
Yeah.
right? Those of us who have a tendency to put ourselves our needs, our wants and desires on the back seat, on the back burner, right? Like you're right. Too much of that and survival is an issue,
Yeah.
right? So how can you balance the self-aware and self-absorbed? Because you do need that balance in order to survive.
Right,
And
right.
you couldn't survive without self-awareness either.
Right. But too much of it, if you were completely self aware all the time, right, it would be probably a little overwhelming because you'd be maybe taking in all the things within you and around you so much so that you would be overwhelmed all the time. Right. So you're right. I mean,
Yes.
this is really about the balance of the two and a real, true, honest awareness of them. Right. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, if we're going to live a really beautiful life, I think it's being able to see the places where we are self-absorbed, where it's necessary for our survival. And then when it's no longer necessary for our survival, how can we become more self-aware so that we can let go of some of those tendencies to really interact in the world in a way that hopefully allows us to be of high service ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah. And high service and respectful,
Hmm.
all right, is
Hmm.
that, can I be self absorbed to the extent I need to be while I'm respecting myself and others?
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
that's, maybe that's, kind of my goal,
Hmm.
right? Not to be completely disrespectful in my self absorption or my self awareness, right? I,
Yeah.
I could, I could find room to be disrespectful of others because my self awareness was so high.
Hmm.
Um, and that wouldn't be good either.
Right, right, exactly. And I think that's the kind of it's almost that's the piece where the idea of judgment can come in, right?
Yes.
Is being able to see that if we're not careful, we can slip into some tendencies around both of these topics, right?
Yeah.
Getting into a judgmental place with them rather than just I don't know. I like to, I come back to that. I love that phrase, cheerful indifference, is just looking at, being able to say, oh, I get kind of self absorbed when I start thinking about, for me, it might be time with my family, like I really want to have time with my kids on the holiday and my husband's kids, are less important to me. Okay, he probably feels the same. All right. So here you go. Let's not judge each other for it. Let's just figure out how are we going to interact over it all and be okay with that. Just be okay that
That's
we
a
have those
great
feelings.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great example. I mean, I do think that many people, because we are, what is life without relationships, right?
Yeah.
When there's some difference of opinion, it could be that we're thinking the other person is not, you know, um, that they're more self-absorbed than we think they should be. But
Mhm.
but you're right. It's only because we are also self-focused at that time and want what we want.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is really, really good. And really, for anybody who's feeling like you're in relationship with people that you think are really self-absorbed or are narcissists, or you're questioning, are they narcissists? You know, as you listen into the podcast today, I just want you to allow yourself to be really open to the idea that you too have the ability to be self-aware and self-absorbed as we all do. And if you want people in your life to be less of one, shall we say, how can you begin to invite that quality of relationship into your life with them? Right.
Yes. Yes.
That's the
Um,
tricky. This is the tricky and the part where you learn skills. You want to learn some skills. Yeah.
and I'm wondering, we've talked about this before, but sometimes when something in another person triggers you,
Hmm.
right? I know this is true for me. Often it's the shadow side, right? And so if I see someone in the world, maybe it's a celebrity, maybe it's someone I know personally, maybe someone I'm in relationship with, you know, when I may be witnessing a behavior that I am labeling as self-absorbed, and therefore I judge them and label them, they are self-absorbed. You know, it may be a trigger for me because I try so hard not to be that way, and am worried about the risk if I were to be that way, right? So I think one of the things that's coming up for me is maybe a journaling prompt of,
Right.
is there something in yourself that you are hiding or afraid of? Is there a risk in your life if you are more self-absorbed or self-centered, self-focused, right? Selfish. I mean, all of those words
Yeah.
in my vocabulary have a negative connotation, right?
Mm.
But I know in the work that I do, in coaching, we all need to be a little selfish so that we can take good care of ourselves and we can live a life that we want to live.
Yeah.
Right. So what is it if you claim someone else is self-absorbed, what is it about that person that you're afraid to be?
Yes, yes, that's great. And I think, getting specific, right, about the behaviors and the qualities that you're seeing are really important because that's part of navigating the territory to be able to communicate rather than just saying, oh, you're so self-absorbed, like let's get more specific about the actual behaviors and what it is that you want to be different and see if you can work on that together in a way where the
Yes.
person, feels supported, right? Because I feel like, behind every narcissist is a really insecure person. And so
Yes.
oftentimes behind the self-absorbed behaviors, even if they aren't at the narcissistic level, can be some insecurity, right? Or some
Yeah.
anxiety
Yeah.
about not know. Like some people just don't know how to listen because they can't quiet down their inner life to just be attentive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it is true, when you think about, that maybe it's the skill set, right? And let's go to self-awareness for a minute,
Hmm.
right? Maybe they are a person who has never been encouraged to take a breath and self-reflect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so, when we interact with others who may not have that experience or invitation, maybe it's our job to be that person who models a different way of being, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and let's talk for a minute about the self-awareness piece of it too. Um, you know, I mean, all of us come into this self-awareness journey at some point and I'm going to say, take the invitation to the extent we're comfortable. I'm going to bit by bit, right? Step by step to increase self awareness. Um, but that too is a learned skill,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, and I love, for me, one of the reasons I'm such a proponent of meditation and talk about it so much is the opportunity. Even if you don't master the skill of meditation, where you're in transcendental meditation and going off into the cosmic ethers, whatever, right? Just the opportunity to sit quietly for a few minutes every day, once or twice a day, and just be aware of your breath, yourself, the thoughts that are running through your mind, the emotions that may never have had a chance to really be paid attention to, how your physical body feels tight or tired. Like just giving yourself that time and attention is an opportunity to become self aware.
Well, and I've never thought of meditation like that
Mm.
because I am one of those people that does not go off anywhere deep during my meditation. Usually I am trying to get 5 minutes of quieting my mind, right? And
Yeah.
focusing on my breath. But what a wonderful tool to increase self-awareness. Because
It's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
just 5 minutes of, if I were to say to, I'm going to have develop or learn or implement a self-awareness practice,
Mhm.
wouldn't even know how to do that, except you just gave me the tool. 5 minutes of meditation. That could be my self-awareness practice.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And just observing self, observing that, I always go through those four levels, right? Observing how's your physical body, what's happening. The questions I always like to ask are where is it tense or tight or tired, right? So that you can use your breath to relax it and loosen it up. What are the thoughts that are running through your mind? When you start to do this every day, you notice you have habitual thoughts, right? So you can see that your mind is actually just a I don't know, a monkey mind, where that's where we get the
Yes.
term, right? Because it just repeats the same stuff over and over again in general, unless you're training it
Yeah.
to like not do that and be creative. And then the emotional, like how are you feeling? Are you feeling overwhelmed and tired? Do you miss your mother suddenly? Do you feel afraid of what's coming up in your life? Are you, like just allowing yourself to get familiar and emotionally intelligent at a very basic level around the emotions and feelings that you have. And then I
That's
love
so good.
energy and spiritual, you can use those interchangeably if you want to. And that's just a sense of a connection with something where you feel more than just your physical self. And that's a beautiful exploration. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. And so self awareness, when we're self absorbed, what often happens, and so here's a little bit of a differential, right? Is oftentimes with the self absorption, we're absorbed in one aspect of that part of our being. Like people that are really self absorbed in their mind, they're constantly thinking and they're constantly engaged in their thought process, and they can't separate a sense of their whole self from what's running through their mind. Same thing with emotional, sometimes same thing with physical. If you have a lot of chronic pain, sometimes you become self absorbed because the physical pain is taking over and you feel like you can't get beyond it. Yeah, so to be able to notice and invite people to self-reflect and to learn how to just sit quietly and pay attention to something other than themselves helps with that self-absorption habit, shall we say. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And so what do you think, is I'm going to say maybe a place for us to begin to like check,
Yeah.
is it that when you maybe, I don't know, I'm thinking of the self-critic, right? The
Yeah.
critic. Oh, I talked too much in that social setting. I should not have done that. Right. I
Mm,
mean, that might be a moment where I'm thinking, oh, that that was a lot about me, right?
mm,
And is that a moment where then I can reflect on, if I could after the fact, what was I feeling that had me that, acting that way? What was I experiencing? What did I need to share? Like some of the basic questions
yeah.
that, is it possible you can analyze it after the fact
I
as a
think
way to catch yourself in the future?
I think you can make an attempt at that, and I think it's absolutely a worthwhile exercise, no doubt about it, to journal about that. Especially when you have feelings and you're wondering, or you're feeling guilty or you're feeling something, to just allow yourself to kind of go through what is the feeling now, what happened, what was that about. But then I think you need to gain perspective, because I know, early on in my journey, if I said three sentences in a row in the midst of just having a conversation where everybody else was talking, I would suddenly feel like I was taking over the whole conversation, when in
Oh,
a little perspective, I was barely even, engaging. Right. But for me, it felt like so much that I felt like I shared too much, right, at the beginning, until I got comfortable.
yes.
Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of perspective. And that's why I love group work. Right.
Yes.
That's one of the ways that I love group work. And I love our group model for the fact that it helps us be able to share kind of equally, right? It encourages us to be a part of the group in a very equal kind of way, where we all share. We have the same amount of time to share. We share on the same topic for a while, like it's actually purposely engaging in the practice of not being self-absorbed, becoming self-aware, and being aware of other people all at the same time.
I am so glad that you brought that group model up.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to use that group model in our at our
Mhm.
retreat
Me too.
this
Yeah.
spring. But when you introduced me to that group model, what I came out of the first time that we led a group using that model, it is true, everyone has equal amount of time. But the biggest lesson for me was it made me so self-aware about my listening skills, which I always thought were good, but they became better being in a situation where um, my awareness could be on myself and another
Yeah.
equally, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
It was
know.
beautiful,
So,
incredible.
so powerful. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like in this exploration for yourself, right? So let's circle back to confidence, right?
Yes.
I want to come back to this idea of, um, shall we say, authentic confidence versus a more egoic, superficial kind of confidence, right? So, oftentimes, one of the complaints that I hear with people that are in relationship with narcissistic people, it's all about them. It's all about them, and they seem so full of themselves. Oh, they seem so confident. But I want to come back to right a really truly confident person, right, doesn't necessarily seem full of themselves, but rather full of whatever the experience is and whatever it is they're sharing. And so you want to start to discern a little bit, again, for yourself when you're sharing, how do you share? How do you feel while you're sharing? Are you feeling a sense of confidence? Are you going in really nervous and anxious and you're not really confident? And so you're just trying to act like you are, like, how does it, all of this is part of the really showing up and feeling like you have a sense of, I'm confident just being who I am in this moment. And I also can be aware of who you are in this moment. And that makes me feel confident too, because I can just meet you here and be with you wherever you're at and speak from a place of authenticity and genuine responsiveness, shall we say. Yeah.
Yes. You know, it when you were speaking, I just had this thought about giving some characteristics to your confidence as a way of figuring out, is it true authentic confidence, or is it, fear and insecurity? And so when I think about what came through for me is,
This could be
the
great journaling prompts, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Let's
yeah.
encourage, invite
So
this as journaling activity.
okay.
Yeah. I love this.
So if you were to look at a time that you exhibited confidence, the question I would ask is, if you could give it a temperature, what temperature was it? Is it, right? I mean, often this we're looking back, so I'll say was. What temperature was it? What color was it? Where in your body did it come from? Right? Um, because I do, as you were talking, I was thinking about myself. And when I feel that I have the authentic confidence in a situation, it's warm, right?
Mm,
It's coming from a heart space or
mm,
deep in my belly. Um, my it's calm, right? It's
mhm.
even keeled. It's not, I can feel when I'm anxious, anxiously confident is a
Mhm.
whole different feeling.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe my heartbeat is raised, maybe my pulse is up, maybe my mouth is dry,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting to start to know the embodiment of confidence and how it shows up in our body, giving us clues about the source of our confidence.
Yeah, and I love that awareness practice that you're inviting people into too, because I think it helps us, whoever's really wants to become more confident and more relaxed as they speak, is the beginning of being able to explore what are you experiencing right now, and then when you are more familiar with those states of being anxiously confident or just being relaxed and confident, right? Like even knowing you probably go through those stages, maybe you're just not confident speaker. So at the beginning you're more anxious, but then as you keep speaking and as you relax into yourself and the topic, you become more relaxed, confident, right? Like, and then maybe you get more impassioned or who knows what, right? But most of us have a rhythm to how we
Yeah.
do that.
And it does
Yeah.
show up,
Yeah.
shows up in public speaking.
Yeah.
I also was thinking it shows up for me in paddleboarding. When my first couple paddles in the season out on the ocean, I am tense. I'm quick, right? It's a whole different feeling. My heart rate is up. Later in the season, my knees are bounceable, right? Or just have,
Mhm.
soft, right? And
Yeah.
I'm calm. My shoulders are calm. But it is interesting when you start to look at what are the clues your body is giving you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. One of the other things that I was kind of like, thinking we should probably go back to too is maybe some of the, ways that uh, if you feel like you're in a relationship with somebody who seems self-absorbed, you want to do some of that shadow work that we talked about at the beginning of the show, right? So going back to what, do we allow yourself to be self-absorbed too? Where are you with that? How does that work for you? So do a little exploration there. But then I really want to come back to this idea of being very much more specific about what you're looking for specifics in that relationship. So if the other person doesn't feel like you don't feel like they really listen to you, right? And you want them to listen to you, you're going to have to start asking for it, and you're going to have to like help them practice literally to get better at it, right? Or know that you're not going to get it there and go get it somewhere else.
Right. Right. But I want to encourage our listeners to at least attempt to get it there. Don't
Mhm.
decide for the other person that they're not capable of it.
Yeah.
Right. And when I think about, just the act of asking someone to listen more intently to you,
Mhm.
just the act of verbalizing that you do not feel listened to or heard, right? That takes some self awareness. It also takes some self worthiness. And maybe it's going to require a 5-minute conversation in which it's all about you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a little bit
Good point, Laurel.
of self absorption when you're asking someone else to
To give you
meet you
something. Yeah.
in your need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or your want, even if it doesn't feel like it's necessarily a
Right.
need, right? Or you feel like, or they might say, well, it's not fair that you need that. You can say, all right, well, I want it,
Yes.
you know?
And when doing this inner work, really, I strive for balance in all things, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so if I'm in a relationship with someone that I can't get to a balanced place and I have to, maybe put up with someone who has less self-awareness, or I'll say is a is is just beginning their self-awareness journey, right?
Yeah.
Um, or if they do talk more about themselves, then they listen, right? If I can't get balance in that relationship, it really requires me to decide, is that relationship with its lack of balance one that I'm able to, willing to stay in, if truly what I seek is balance in my life,
Right,
right?
right. And or is there some place where there's a balance that weighs to the other side, where they're giving more of something and you're
Right.
you're giving less of something, and
That's
so
right.
you can kind of sense that there feels like if you put it all together, it could feel balanced.
That's
And
right.
and I think we need to really acknowledge that part of our relationships, because sometimes there's these kind of underlying agreements. I'm going to stay in this relationship and I won't expect you to do that because you do that, and I don't expect you to do that because you do that, right? And we're okay
Right.
with that, but if suddenly
Yes.
we're not, or it doesn't feel something feels out of balance, there's got to be some exploration there about how that happened, or maybe you're changing and you want it to be different, and it was okay before but it's not anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's so important to have our needs at least acknowledged by ourselves and the other in a relationship, right?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
stay curious, right?
Yeah.
Stay curious about, how can I feel more seen or heard in this relationship? How can I, whatever the need is, right? How
Yeah.
can I allow this person to be more self-focused than me focused? What's the healthy way to do that? I mean,
Yeah.
those are really important questions.
They are. They are. And I think again, we always come back to, the the coming together and having an agreement, together about what the relationship is about. I know that when we start doing inner work and we, become deeply devoted to this path, let's say, uh, if we're in relationship with somebody who's less so, um, sometimes that can feel hard, as you're going through the change. And so we're often reevaluating, what is there in the relationship and can we stay committed because there's enough there in other ways. And this is all part of the journey. It's just part of the journey. Yeah.
Yes. And it requires confidence.
It does require confidence because we have to claim what we want. And if we want this, we enjoy this. It feels good to be doing this work. It feels good to be growing. It feels good to be becoming more self-aware and more selfish in some ways because we're claiming a life that we're really starting to love. Like it's just part of the process,
Yes.
Yeah.
We could talk about this topic all day, I bet.
I know. I think we gave some good journaling prompts there. Any final things coming up, Laurel, around journaling ideas or thoughts for our friends out there as they're exploring this one? Because this one, I feel like this one we hit on it today and we began the conversation. We can deepen the
So
conversation,
much
but it
there.
won't all be today. Yeah.
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 And I mean, I have an idea about doing a periodic like check-in and
Mm.
inventory, right? Get curious about yourself.
Yeah.
Where are you, you know, on your self-awareness journey, right? What do you want to improve? You know, how is it serving you? How can you maybe devote more time or attention to it? And the same with your ability to be self-absorbed, right? Where are you on that journey? Are you trying to, increase maybe the amount of time and attention you give yourself and expect from others? Um, are you trying to decrease it and give others the floor more often than you have in the past? I think there's an important, maybe we do it a few times a year. Just check in and look at both of those practices and how can you maybe strengthen your confidence in both self-awareness and self-absorption to better balance both of them, not together, but individually, so that you are more balanced in your practice in both areas of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, very. I think that's great. I'm just gonna say, Laurel, I love that as a wrap up. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So we did mention our retreat. It's coming up this April. Um, I would imagine it's January. Well, I probably should be careful. We don't know if we'll have spaces left. We hope we it could be sold out by
Oh,
now, but we just don't know. So
we
check
do
in.
not know.
We are definitely going to have for as long as there are spaces at the retreat open, we will have a link here in the podcast notes for you to be able to go and learn more about it and register if you're ready to do that. Yeah. We're
Yes.
always here too. If you're not sure, just jump on a call with Laurel or I. You can schedule a call with one of us and talk more about details about the retreat, and we can help fill you in and help you make your decision. Yeah,
Yes. And our emails are always listed in the show notes.
always. Yeah,
So
yeah.
reach out.
Reach out. We are here for you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank
Oh,
you so much.
thank you too, Laurel. It was a great conversation today.
Yes, I
Yeah,
always enjoy it. And thank you, listeners, for being with us. We
yeah,
would not be here without you.
yeah. Let's keep rolling into 2024 with more confidence. All right.
Yes, love that. All right.
Back
Bye
back
bye.
for more. Bye.